Hello everybody out there and welcome to this, another edition of a late night screen review. And this week we're talking about There's Something in the Barn. Where?
It's probably just the wood. Old buildings, they creak and groan.
That's a barn elf.
Are they real?
Yes. The barn elf hates changes to the barn.
What do you think? No!
Maybe it's a child who ran away from home headed to a Nordic death metal festival.
It has a beard, Bill.
So, There's Something in the Barn is a Norwegian-Finnish fantasy horror movie that's just been released in select cinemas and on streaming services from the 1st of December. So what's the story about? So this film tells the story of an American family that have just moved to Norway. They're right in the mountains in the middle of nowhere in a small isolated town where it snows pretty much every single day. They're there to fulfill a dream and open up their own B&B, and the family are not happy about this. This is a dad's dream kind of movie. The dad is hell-bent on making it work in Norway after inheriting a house from a dead relative, and all the other family have been moved there against their will, and they're not very happy about it. And they happen to have a massive, huge barn at the back of their house, and there's something in that barn. So what did I think of the film? So, I didn't know much about this movie. I think I just randomly stumbled across a trailer on the internet somewhere along the way. This is like an independent foreign horror movie. As I say, it's only in select cinemas across England anyway. I actually had to stream this movie this time, so I don't usually pay for streaming services, but I paid for it this time just because there wasn't a local cinema anywhere near me that I could go to watch the film. It's been released today, I think, on the 1st of December in England, but I've heard from other sources that it might be the 3rd of December, although it does seem to be out on the 1st, so there you go. So what did I think of this film? Well, here's the thing. These are one of the kind of reviews that I hate doing the most. It's that kind of review where it's not quite what I wanted it to be at all. I've just literally finished watching it, and the film kind of sells itself on being a kind of Krampus meets Gremlins, except it's got a Norwegian twist, and the creatures, instead of them being these like ugly monstrous gremlins, they're like these kind of almost traditional Christmas card kind of elf looking beings. So literally full beard, big pointy red hats, and they're obviously quite short people. Now, the family move in, and there's this kind of this mythology about Christmas elves that live in the barn, and if you treat them nicely and follow the 3 rules, they will help you out all year long around your farm. But if you disobey the rules, they are going to turn nasty. And obviously these guys being American, this family coming in, they do not follow the rules. I think one of which is being quiet, the other one is no loud noises and not setting up too many big flashy lights because they don't like lights. And the American family proceed to then completely disregard all these rules. Now, the son is the first to discover the elf in the barn, a la E.T., and he has a kind of friendship. So for the first half of the movie, we interact with the family, we follow them around, they're adjusting to a new life in Norway, the daughter isn't happy, the mother's a bit kind of all over the place, not sure what's going on really. The dad's just massively enthusiastic all the time, and the son creeps off on his own and goes into the barn to explore and discovers an elf. Now, he befriends the elf, gives it cookies every night, feeds it, makes it happy, and then every morning the family wake up and something's fixed around the farm, or the snow's been ploughed. Impossible things that could never be done overnight seemingly happen, and the family have literally no qualms about this whatsoever. So the film, I think, is reaching for something, and I think that's something to be said in the positive for this movie. It's reaching to be one of those kind of horror seasonal comedies. Unfortunately for this film, in my opinion, it's just not funny. It stretches things to the point of absurdity. As I say, like the family not really kind of registering that these things are happening, these kind of seemingly magical things are happening around the house, to the point of absurdity. Like the father should have clocked this very early on and been like, I wonder who's doing this stuff for us. And things that are seemingly done that are impossible, like at one point the father's trying to cut firewood and it's a giant pile of firewood and he can't do it and leaves it for the night, and then he wakes up the next morning and it is done and he doesn't question it whatsoever. The father as well, the film for the first 40 minutes stretches this kind of the comedy element behind the father being very enthusiastic and really being positive and trying to keep everybody together and disregarding anybody else's feelings. So he doesn't care that his wife's unhappy, he doesn't care that his daughter's miserable, and he doesn't care that his son's kind of wandering off all the time. And at first, yeah, there's some comedy elements in that, but the film doesn't ever seem to want to drop it. And it doesn't ever seem to want to drop a scene where it's a bit more heartfelt and gives the characters a bit of something to do besides trying to just set up the next joke. And I think the film really fails at that, because then in the second half of the film, when you know the proverbial elf hits the fan, you kind of don't feel sorry for anybody because they've just been written so stupidly, to the point of absurdity. So it's just like you can't take the characters that seriously, really, and you don't take the fact that they're in danger too seriously, because the film's just not given us any meat to the characters. And I think that's a real shame of the movie. I think it tried too hard to be funny for the sake of the characters, basically. So obviously the family break the rules, and then the latter half of the movie is them kind of surviving the onslaught of the elves. Now, the other sin that this film commits is that it doesn't kind of stick to its premise of what the creature is. And you see this in a lot of independent, especially horror movies, where they come up with a monster, a creature, but they don't lock down the rules well enough. So at the beginning, this creature, we see it kill the dad's, the father's relative. So that's how he inherits the house. The elf has seemingly killed the previous owner, in a gory, monstrous way. Okay, so it's a monster, right? It kills people. It's just like an unfeeling, unthinking, monstrous, spiritual, supernatural creature. No. Sometimes, and sometimes not. So there's a scene where a mass amount of elves kind of lay siege to the house. So there's, I don't know, 10, 15 elves, new characters that come along, and they start just destroying the house. But before they do that, they make the family run upstairs and lock themselves in a room and make no real attempt to get at the family. They just kind of pause the film. And they pause the film to then have the elves stood around in the living room and having a discussion about what they're going to do next. Which is like, oh, they're actually just basically small people, intelligent. You see them get kicked around a lot and punched around and thrown about. So they don't seem that menacing. They seem very susceptible to kind of just everyday damage and interaction. As I say, they kind of stop the kind of onslaught to smash the house up. But consciously they make the decision they go, no, hold on, we're going to stop killing everybody, and we're just going to smash the house up, and we're going to drink out of the fridge and eat all the food and just lark around a la Gremlins. And that sounds like a really fun sequence, except it goes on way too long and stops being funny almost like half a minute into the sequence itself. And then the family are just upstairs, and literally one of the members says, what are they doing down there? And one of the other family members says, I don't know, but it sounds like they're having fun, except it's not fun to watch, and it's just confusing. So they're either supernatural monstrous creatures that murder, or they're kind of just these kind of people who are just kind of being a bit rowdy, you know, like having a rowdy kind of house party, essentially, and just inviting a bunch of elves. So it kind of, it wastes its premise, this film, I think, and it's not as funny as the film thinks it is. Now, there is some good stuff. The actors are great. The family, apart from the dad, when he kind of oversells the kind of, you know, his kind of shtick. Other than that, the family work really well together, and the actors are really, like, they interact well. There's some really fun and some endearing scenes at certain sequences. Some of the townsfolk, the locals, they are interesting, funny, fun, nice to watch. The interaction at the beginning with the boy and the elf is interesting and like cute at some points, and a bit like nerve-wracking at other points because you don't know if the elf's gonna attack the boy or not. So there is some good stuff in this movie, but for me it's 2 points really. It wastes its premise by not being very clear, and it stretches things out to such an absurd extent that it kind of kills the joke. So it's not as funny as the film likes to think it is. So for me, I can't really recommend this film, although I do think there is some things to watch here. I think if you're really into like comedy, horror, Christmas themed movies, then you could watch this one just out of the sake of curiosity, and you might find that it's actually really fun. I don't know, like it might not have just landed for me. If you're somebody that likes kind of independent movies and you're very forgiving, you're probably going to have a good time with this film. For me, I just think it needed a bit more work. I think it wasted its premise, but it was a good premise. And as I say, there are some like interesting bits and pieces along the way. But for me, it's not really a recommend for this one. And that's a shame, because I think, like I say, this film was reaching for something, and I think that's really commendable for any independent, low-budget movie to actually have a concept and reach for an idea as opposed to kind of doing nothing, which this film isn't not doing anything. It at least is trying to do something, and I think that's commendable. But it's not a recommend from me, and that's it for this week's Late Night Scream Review. So as always, guys, follow, like, subscribe the show, keep growing the channel. I think the next film we're going to be watching before the end of this year is Godzilla -1, so I'm really looking forward to that one. But until then, guys, stay safe, stay scared, and we'll see you soon. Bye.